Hello, I'm Kim Williams from Kansas State University, and the content of this short eGrow presentation covers the crop maintenance activities of bud and flower removal. The first of our topics is bud removal, which includes both disbudding and center bud removal, or CBR. Our second topic focuses on removing flowers, which is often referred to as deadheading in many applications. Let's start with bud removal. With some crops, the removal of some flower buds from a plant is practiced to control the number of flowers that are allowed to develop, and secondly, to control the shape of the inflorescence. Bud removal is commonly practiced with members of the Asteraceae, which is the plant family that includes mums and sunflowers. Consider these stems of cultivar teddy bear sunflowers on which no bud removal occurred. If the smaller flowers below the terminal largest flower had been removed in the bud stage, then it would have resulted in a much higher quality cut stem with one large flower at the top. The term for this form of bud removal is disbudding. You can see that the potted mum on the left has been disbudded. That is, all the lateral buds were removed and only the largest terminal flower bud on each stem was allowed to develop. The plant on the right, on the other hand, was center budded. That is, the large terminal flower bud on each stem was removed, allowing all of the smaller lateral buds to develop. The result is that more smaller flowers are produced, of course. Also note that these two potted mums are the same cultivar, which is Sunny Mandalay, and they were produced on the same schedule, but the disbudded plants finish a bit sooner because there are many fewer flowers to open up. Disbudding should occur as soon as the lateral buds can be manually rolled out of the nodes. You can see where this has been done at each node on this stem, with one disbudded node circled in yellow. The stem is disbudded because only the terminal bud, circled in blue, is being allowed to develop. With center bud removal, only the terminal flower bud is removed from each stem, as were circled in the photo. This leaves many small flowers to develop. Center bud removal should be done as soon as a terminal flower bud has separated from the uppermost lateral buds. Now, I've just mentioned when during bud development, disbudding or center budding should be done, as timing bud removal is important. So again, you want to remove the buds when they're still small, before the plant has directed much energy to further develop the unneeded flowers. The mum on the left is at the ideal stage of bud removal. Buds are large enough to easily separate from each other and roll out of the nodes. The plant on the right is a little past prime for bud removal. The stems on which the buds are developing have elongated, and this will make the process slower and more damaging to the plant. Here's an example of a potted mum that was disbudded. However, you can pick out the stem that was missed during this manual process, and you can see the detrimental effect on the aesthetics of the overall plant. Of course, with all crop production activities done manually, increased labor expenses will add significantly to the cost of production. Therefore, cultivars of species on which bud removal is commonly practiced, like chrysanthemums, have been developed so that bud removal is not necessary. This is actually fairly common with fall mums. Now, crown buds can develop when environmental conditions for optimal flowering go awry, such as under the high temperatures when the physiological disorder of heat delay occurs on crops like mums. The stem on the left is showing normal flower bud development with both the terminal and lateral buds, but the stem on the right has developed only a terminal bud under suboptimal conditions for flowering, and it's termed a crown bud. You can see the development of crown buds on these fall mums after a very hot August. Onset of crown bud formation was the result of high temperatures during the first couple of weeks of flower bud initiation, and the terminal bud is subtended by strap-like leaves. The reason that I bring it up as we discuss bud and flower removal is to note that the effect of the development of the crown buds is to result in branching, so it effectively serves as a pinch. Axillary breaks below the crown bud will develop into shoots. One more idea with regard to bud removal can be considered with gloxinia. As this crop flowers in flushes, Buds that begin developing before the majority of flowers in the terminal flush are sometimes removed to encourage uniform flowering and avoid the senescence of older flowers before the majority develop. This step improves the finished quality of the crop. Flower removal as a crop maintenance activity may be done for several reasons, including mitigation of pest problems, maintaining stock plants for vegetative propagation, or deadheading to clean the plants prior to shipping. Management of both disease and insect pest problems can be aided with appropriate flower removal. For example, the insect pest thrips preferentially feeds on pollen and other flower tissue. Removal of early blooming or heavily infested flowers, like those in this photo, will aid in thrips management by removing population centers. Similarly, one of the best ways to manage some diseases, like botrytis, is to remove senescing tissue before the onset of diseases such as gray mold. To this point, we've been referring to bud and flower removal as a manual process. However, the plant growth regulator Ethifon, with trade names of Florel and Pistil, will induce bud or inflorescence abortion if applied at the proper stage of development. It's also been used on geraniums, mums, and other crops at low rates to aid in plant branching. Both of these effects, bud abortion and increased plant branching, are beneficial in maintaining stock plants that will be used for vegetative propagation. This photo shows bud abortion on ivy geranium in baskets after treatment with Ethifon. Now, having crops at the optimal stage of flowering at the point of ship is always the goal. But perfect timing is not always possible. Manual removal of senescing flowers to clean crops prior to shipping is a common practice, though the labor-intensive step adds to the cost of production. And as mentioned earlier, the step might mitigate pest problems. When removing flowers and flower buds, it's important to remove the entire stem of the flower, not just pop off the bud, but remove the entire stem. When flowers need to be removed from crops hanging overhead, crews can adopt various forms of automation to access them, as seen in these photos. To close, I want to gratefully acknowledge the funding of the Fred C. Glockner Foundation, which made eGrow University possible, as well as my colleagues at the partnering universities.